ikanan sayon, ja meoga. Jakel joka. Jai puno lutam masiano. Kabutsawa dicha niyoso wariachu. Zune I keino.
No Kuya!
Apologies, my Kaido.
Sweet, where's my ears?
That's better. Greetings, humans. From myself and my compatriots, Major Thesdoram and Shipmaster Drakel. The artisan armorers of Lodam have provided us with new information regarding the many combat harnesses we Sangheili have used throughout the history of our people, and have permitted us with divulging some of their secrets. Due to the sheer amount of armor systems, we shall be dividing them into these categories: core military, organizational, specialization, and post-Covenant era. I shall recall the history of the harnesses, from their simple beginnings to where they are now. Major Doram will discuss the many variations throughout the Covenant War and beyond, and Shipmaster Drakel shall cover its design specifications. However, there may be some overlaps in these subjects. Now, let us begin.
As the hilt of the blade for the Covenant military, the bulk of combat harnesses were made for the frontline warriors and their commanding officers. These were the rank-and-file armor systems.
The pattern for the basic combat harness has remained virtually unchanged now for 1100 cycles. It has burned into the psyche of the known galaxy as the primary symbol of military prowess. It derives from the armor of Sangheili warriors in ancient past, steel and leather-plated, much like the armor ancient humans wore in their wars. This armor was worn from the clan wars to the very formation of the Covenant, and has evolved into the combat harness it has become now. The combat design has established itself as extremely capable and adaptable pattern that has remained popular across all Sangheili factions, even those who have eschewed the ways of the Covenant, such as we Swords of Sanghelios.
Indeed, my Kaiden. Although, I don't believe that the combat harness has remained entirely consistent, as some have claimed. From my service during the war, I saw many variations, based on occupation and personal taste. And despite there being more unique patterns for different ranks, as we shall discuss, there are variants that serve many different ranks and rates. It wouldn't be uncommon to see a zealot and a miner wear the same pattern of combat harness, with the only physical distinction being their coloration.
All combat harnesses are composed of nanolaminate plating atop a tech undersuit. The most notable feature is, of course, integrated energy shields that provides an additional layer of protection for the Sangheili warrior, or, as the Major colorfully likes to put it, gives your flaky hide more time to get into cover. Our armor systems also increase the strength and speed of those clad in it, much like the human's Mjolnir armor system, although I will admit those augmented traits are superior in the human's designs. Note to self: make plans to visit the Kolar manufacturer to inspect the Helios Skrill pattern blueprints. I must find a way to readapt the specifications to Sangheili.
Zukamari!
Yes, back to the matter at hand. As mentioned before, the combat harness serves a myriad of roles and systems which, while more notable within the armor systems in the specialized category, are just as capable of supporting our warriors.
With the promise of honor and glory ensures that there is no shortage of Sangheili eager to prove their worth in battle. Sangheili that survive and temper their enthusiasm for violence are promoted to the host of obedientaries, lead by personal example, exhorting their comrades to press the attack from the front lines, while displaying the martial qualities that the Sangheili perceive as invaluable to their commanders. To this end, the officer harness came to be.
Ah, yes, this armor set. I recall Nakai pestering me for a full cycle to upgrade to this pattern when I was first placed under his command. The only notable distinction about this armor system is that it is a more standardized chassis with a more grossly ornate design than those in standard combat harnesses.
More flesh, same substance. Seems pretty Covenant to me.
The Evocati, or Ultras as you humans know them, were veteran warriors who displayed exemplary martial aptitude, but lacked the inclination or desire to follow the path of leadership. Instead, they would have found the apex of their warrior career as an Ultra, crowned with the glory and guaranteed a position of honor and respect in their family archives and the record vaults within High Charity.
The most notable pattern of the Ultra Harness was seen amongst the fleet of Valiant Prudence, featuring a crested helmet similar to that of the Sangheili High Counselors. It was a reminder of their position and a rallying site for other Covenant soldiers.
A common feature of the Evocati armors, although it is not exclusive to them, is an external plug attached to the back of the operator's thoracic cage. The armor lock envelops the operator with a powerful energy shield, rendering them virtually impervious to all damage for a short period of time. After a 5-second period of continuous use, the device deactivates and releases an electromagnetic pulse.
When the Covenant set about to conquer a hostile world with an invading army, generals were tasked in leading our armies to crush the enemy and seize control of the Forerunner relics buried beneath the ground.
These honored leaders of war were ordained with golden armor and great curved helmets, symbolizing the command they were granted. Running throughout their armor were patterns that glowed as bright as Ur's divine light, blinding their foes.
The very nature of the Covenant, its many ministries and clerical organizations made it inevitable that unique orders would form, and that the Sangheili within them would be given unique armor systems that stood out from the common warrior.
The Guardians of the San Shayum. These Sangheili wore ceremonial armor colored in a combination of glowing red and orange, though the advanced units within the Lights of Sanghelios bore a white coloration instead to symbolize their command over their lesser honor guards. Their harnesses featured jutting spikes and pauldrons, though they sometimes wore non-ceremonial armor for the sake of practicality in combat. In the modern day, however, mercenaries who sought to reclaim their lost glory have painted the once noble armor in red and silver as they fulfill the contracts given unto them by the Banished.
The role and legacy of the Sangheili Zealots can be traced back to a time before the signing of the Writ of Union. Over the decades, a number of different Zealot chapters aligned with particular interpretations of ancient codes of honor or debt pacts endured, and even thrived under the Covenant Ministry of Fervent Intercession. Some chapters, like the devoted sentries that once served Supreme Commander Ro Barotame, wore ceremonial battle harnesses cladded in maroon. Zealots in command, including those of regular Covenant military forces, wore similar armor, albeit colored gold, like those worn by low-ranking generals. The highest religious authority within the Zealot order were the field marshals, who reported directly to a supreme commander during a planetary invasion in search of Forerunner relics that could have hastened the beginning of the Great Journey. They wore modified versions of the ceremonial battle harness. The front of the helmet has two horn-like prongs, and the pauldrons are wider. Some zealot supreme commanders had even came to wear colored Dormir fur cloaks with their armor, to reflect that of seafaring Sangheili, who made thick cloaks to stay warm and dry during long voyages.
The ascetics were an ancient warrior order with deep ties to old Sangheili beliefs. While the ascetics' military forces had been formally dissolved following the formation of the Covenant, they remained fervently devoted to their pre-Covenant faith. Ascetic priests would continue to secretly initiate worthy Sangheili into their ranks, keeping the ideals of their martial order alive and hidden from the Prophet's scrutiny. But with the return of our sovereignty comes a much-needed revival of the ascetics. Now, more than ever, our culture depends upon their resolve to help ensure stability. The ascetic harness is utilized exclusively by the Sangheili Ascetic Corps, a group consisting of some of the most elite warriors within our race. And as the physical embodiment of ideological purity, an ascetic's presence promotes feelings of stability and order. And by example, they will show us the true path. Their bladed mandible guards symbolize the lethality of these warrior monks, while their ceremonial harnesses instill purity of our once rich warrior culture that will come again.
While brawn and status were indeed a necessity on the battlefield, a more precise method of eliminating threats is often needed. To this end, specialist troops and their equipment are utilized. And as I said previously, while most of the systems that will be mentioned here can be found in upgraded combat harnesses, these armor systems are more specifically designed to incorporate them.
Rangers were highly trained assault troops that fell under Fleet Security, a division of the Covenant's Special Warfare Group. While some joined this elite force for personal glory or ancestral duty, they each knew that a gruesome end could await them from even the most inconsequential of injuries, for the void of space is an unforgiving mistress.
Two variations of the Ranger harness were created for both space and ground combat during the war with humanity. The EVA variant featured a clear domed helmet, along with more notable armor plating, all for better protection when fighting within the cold vacuum of space or dropping into hazardous environments. The other was a lighter assault-based harness that, while not bearing the EVA helmet nor as bulky of armor plating, had integrated twin thruster packs and were hindered to face their opponents in aerial combat. With the collapse of the Covenant, newer variations of the Ranger harness were fashioned by old veterans who now serve renegade warlords, such as the deceased hand of the Didact, Julum Damba.
The Rangers utilize a thruster pack that utilize chemical propulsion attached to the armor in order to maneuver in zero to low gravity environments, or they utilize an anti-gravity pack, which, much like the Banshee, traverses the battlefield via anti-gravity technology. Speaking of the Ranger harness, that brings us to a far more infamous armor system, the Assault Harness. This miraculous piece of pre-Covenant protection features reinforced aligned composites and buttress principal protective stratum to preserve structural coherence of underlying tissue, and an ultra-resilient deltoid protection to aid in the concussive shock force and direct kinetic energy.
What?
In layman's terms, the assault harness can take a beating. Honestly, it is as simple a concept to explain as quantum physics.
Indeed, such was the effectiveness of this armor system that the prophets placed heavy restrictions upon its use during their lordship over the Covenant. The Sangheili separatists within the Fleet of Retribution raided the storehouses of High Charity, claiming many units of this harness, which proved invaluable against the savage Jirohanai and the Parasite. Now, under the swords of Sanghelios, the assault harness has been fully reissued into our military.
Truly, no armor strikes as much terror in the UNSC as the infiltration harness. Fashioned for stealth and less direct methods of combat, it was utilized by stealth and spec ops units during the Great War. There was also a fully enclosed variant for the specialists known as the Silent Shadow. in their missions to protect the rule of the Sanshayum caste. Utilized by these deadly organizations, this armor system allowed one to pass behind enemy lines, virtually unseen, to either gather intelligence or to thin their foes' ranks. Either method made their foes much more vulnerable prey for the Covenant war machine.
In the case of special operations, they utilize infiltration harnesses that have integrated active camouflage generators, which bend light around the warrior, rendering them completely invisible, although at the cost of shielding strength. Their armor also features audio and video recording equipment in order to gather data and intel whilst on missions. Pilots who are clad in the flight harness have many suitable upgrades to aid them whilst commanding their vehicles. Their sealed helmets were equipped with hyperwave link for cleaner craft interaction and a mouthpiece that retains a multiport for use with older Taras-class heavy fighters and Gigas-class fighter bombers. The more compact deltoid armor has less of an impact on the pilot's range of motion in the cramped compartments of subliminal spacecraft and reduces overall fatigue in multi-phase interdiction missions.
The Commando harness is a lighter and sturdier counterpart to the standard issue combat harness. They were the standard for those who had served within the Commandos, a specialized unit that once served under the now defunct Special Warfare Group. But when the Prophets betrayed our people, and the Great Schism sparked the downfall of their oppressive rule, the Commando units were given new purpose, serving under the swords of Sangheili in our mission to unite our homeworld.
The helmet features hardened communications gear and uplink capabilities to stay in constant radio contact with both their command and fellow soldiers. The thoracic cage is streamlined for greater maneuverability in close environments, with lightweight construction materials and an advanced internal components to increase overall performance. All of these attributes combined made for an armor system that, when paired with a skilled enough warrior, made a deadly opponent in combat. Not all harnesses were designed primarily for fighting, such in the case of the infamous artifact retrieval harness, or as most know it, the Heretic's harness. Created to withstand harsh environments in order to retrieve holy artifacts, it boasted a respiration apparatus to assist on hospitable worlds, like that of the gas giant Threshold, the same place where this armor system won its infamy, with the heretic leader Sessa Refumi leading a rebellion clad head to toe in it. While his soldiers wore the standard retrieval harness, Sessa himself bore a modified version, with integrated thruster packs similar to that of the Ranger.
We shall finish off this category with two lesser-known armor systems. First, a pattern that is very near and dear to me, the Invader. This harness found its origins in the ceremonial armor worn by Sangheili hunting lodges. Recently, Sangheili artisan armorers on remote colonies have revived the harness with modern advancements to hunt down Jirohanai raiding packs, like the hairy filth that they are.
The Outrider harness. This extravagant set of armor is equipped with a host of sensor enhancements and exotic structural composites, which improve survivability and effectiveness during high-threat combat and isolated surveillance excursions on frontier worlds. I'm thinking of integrating some of these lovely systems into our more standard gear.
A brief justification for this category is required. Most of these armors were presented during the Human Covenant War to some capacity. However, they rose to greater prominence after the fall of the Old Covenant, and thus we felt that they deserved their own category. The Storm Elites were once specialized shock troopers that formerly served the Fallen Covenant to keep the peace on frontier worlds. And now, they are most widely encountered within Julem Dama's Covenant forces, as well as our own Swords of Sangheili ranks, as civil war once plagued our homeworld.
Developed by Lodam Armory, The storm harness is a simple, sleek, and efficient design. From the helmet that covers the full span of the face, to the form-fitting greaves that actually fit comfortably to the user. However, unlike most other harnesses, where the armor covers the whole body, the storm harness often leaves its wearer's arms exposed. A flawed and worthless design to any true warrior.
Yet we Swords of Sangheili have improved this error in the design for more efficiency in battle. The storm harness is most often issued in blue, though green, red, white, and even gold harnesses are utilized to reflect those in a commanding position, leading the armies of Sangheili warlords into combat.
Many Sangheili who served as commanding officers during the Covenant's reign became commanders of their own factions following the Great Schism. Most would eventually choose to follow under rising leaders, such as Dama, though many others formed their own pocket empires and independent alliances. Their harnesses mirrored the armor of the officers of old, albeit in a darker coloration as opposed to the bright crimson. They also incorporated design philosophies from other harnesses, such as the Storm. And another more interesting note is that there was a raised claw on their boots that reminiscent of ancient ceremonial armors worn by Sangheili warrior heroes.
The generals that had once served under the renegade warlord Dama bore the warrior harness, marked in the same decor as the general harness during the time of the Old Covenant. The warrior armor was granted to those worthy enough to lead Dama's army to rebuild a new Covenant order under his rule. But when that rule was short-lived, a council of these generals led what was left of Dama's little upstart empire, until their tainted light was extinguished at the fall of Sunayan.
As the Covenant fractured and scattered to the winds, a new order of zealots had arisen on the frontier world of Hesderos. These zealots filled the spiritual void left behind by the San Shayum within Dama's new Covenant. Although the Hesderan pattern was utilized by the zealot chapters that hailed from the colony world, it has seen wider use in the modern day, even amongst we of the Swords. This armor system features a very organic, almost chitinous appearance. The helms bear a resemblance to those of Spec Ops units and are often equipped with active camouflage technology. A blade-like talon, derived from the armor worn by Kaidons on Hesderos, is located on the inner toe of either boot.
And with that, I believe we have completed our overview of all...
Wait, Kaiden. We still have one more to discuss.
Oh?
One of the most legendary and, dare I say it, iconic of all Sangheili armor systems?
Of course, I wouldn't forget the armor of the kings of old. The most ancient and revered armors were bestowed upon the greatest leader of the clans, the master of the battlefield, the ultimate warrior king of the Sangheili, the arbiter. Each arbiter harness were as unique as the warrior who claimed this ancient title, even after they swore fealty to the prophets thousands of years ago. But when the fallen arbiter, Fal Chavami, chose to defy the will of the Sanshum, this ancient mantle was turned into a mark of disgrace and shame.
After this fall, each arbiter's harness would remain unique, more due to how badly damaged, if not outright destroyed, each set would become during their wearer's suicidal campaign for redemption. However, none have become as iconic as that worn by the last of the Covenant's arbiters, when the noble Fel Vadam exposed the treachery of the Sanshum and drove back the Covenant. The title of Arbiter once again became a symbol of power and leadership for the Sangheili. To usher a new dawn to the Sangheili, Vadam now dons a ceremonial plate to honor the Arbiter Judge Kings of old. Yet he still retains possession of the old harness he used when fighting alongside the demon at the end of the war. A reminder to him of what he and Arbiters after him can once more become.
Like the standard Sangheili combat harness, the Arbiter's armor is equipped with modern energy shielding. It also possesses active camouflage capabilities, but this feature can only be enabled for a limited time, contrary to the armor of the spec-up Sangheili, as the armor and its functionalities were somewhat older than modern Covenant cloaking technology.